It's the 1st of July and my upload today is with regard to the same topic as has been the basis of this documentation or documentary of hate crime I'm experiencing, human rights violations. So as I've mentioned, all my constitutional rights have been disrespected. My human rights have been disrespected, and the issue of hate crime is really prevalent, and the issue of individuals that have been of blasphemy and treason in this community without reform, subsequent to my humanitarian endeavour in 2018, is a concern for me, that individuals would still be partaking in unhealthy behaviours and that they would still persist in bad behaviour, bad practice. So they've overlooked a few matters and they've overstepped a few lines, and they have disrespected the laws and pillars that be. And as I've mentioned, there's been exacerbation occurring, there's been withholding of information, there's been property theft, more property theft in this circumstance, and more property fraud issues as well caused. And the basis of what these people have worked with is really poor. They have no foundation to their work. They haven't their work based on good practice, and they have no entitlement to the circumstances that they're stealing from. There are individuals that seem to assume that they're going to help themselves to my rights, and entitlements and royalties and so on and so forth. And they've overlooked their demeanours. They have a bad background, a bad track record, a bad repertoire of work, which has been of defamation, violations of privacy, breaches of confidentiality, bad PR. And I'm not just talking from 2019 to 2022. I'm speaking of 2016 to 2017. I'm speaking of 2006 to 2015. And I'm in this situation, and there's not a single thing being done that is obligatory for me. These people have been quite careless. They haven't done anything responsible to fulfill their functions, duties, or purpose. And they've only just demonstrated bad practice, really. So they haven't fulfilled their obligations. And I'm really concerned about what kind of individuals, professionals, and so on and so forth would associate with those kind of individuals that can't even do their jobs properly. Who would risk their reputation and credibility working with people that can't even address what they've done in my circumstances? So that brings into the forum integrity, just respect, and dignity. These are simple concepts. And there are politicians, practitioners, and policymakers all benefiting from COVID-19, which arose from my purpose. I'm an avatar. And I've been intruded upon by families in this community that have overstepped the line and thought they'd benefit and prosper from me while walking on my property. So it's a dirty situation that any representative of Dáil Éireann would think it fit or safe to be in the proximity of a mother that they owe debts to. The politicians that are assisting any offences against the state and disrespecting the constitution or the democracy are setting themselves up for a fall. And there have been falls already in this community because of the offences being caused against me. So I'm really concerned about those that are perpetuating the cycle of hate crime and so on and so forth, and just bad initiatives, really bad practice. I'm a peaceful pacifist. I have a clean track record. I have a clean conscience. I sleep at night, and there's a cycle of repetition of people not able to do their jobs properly and still putting a burden on people's lives with the problems they're making, and they don't seem fit for society to provide solutions. These people owe amends since 2006 to this person. They owe reparations, and that concept doesn't seem to be registering with them. So unfortunately, there's a very serious issue about people that decide to intrude where they don't belong or trespass where they have no right. My child is a missing person since January 2017. COVID-19 has come about as a consequence of my work, and there are people of creative intellectual property theft. My home is in Turbot Hill. The state is underpaying me. It's not recognising what entitlements or royalties and obligations are there with my royal title, and these people aren't even qualified or fit for purpose in their practice or profession, and that they have to be so rude with other people's privacy. My goodness, if you can't mind your own home, I don't know how you expect for your own walls to not fall. Do you know what I mean? And people have fallen as a consequence of this initiative of hate crime against my good name, character and reputation. And people risking themselves for a bad initiative is really embarrassing. It's not showing much of your emotional intelligence. It's not showing much of your intellectual quotient if you're supporting an unworthy cause where there's already been bad outcomes. There's good gains and bad gains. There's good decision making and poor decision making. And people that are avaricious and covetous in a circumstance where there's been treason and blasphemy, that's dangerous. So I really hope everyone's grasping the basis and premise from which people are working against the Constitution, the democracy, and my good name, my bloodline. I have a fabulous bloodline. I'm really, it's actually more fascinating than I know. But, as I've said, people disrespecting a good name, it's very dangerous. It's very unsafe. Anyone would know that. And this matter is disrespecting women and children's rights. And women and children take precedence. Women and children are the priority in most societies of a democracy. So those that have disrespected my child and I'm concerned that there'll be more casualties. I'm concerned about what debts I'm owed, and I'm concerned about anyone that thinks it's safe to be defaming my good name and my bloodline. So there's a host of issues being caused. There's false reporting. There's all sorts of exacerbatory wrongdoings going on. And the problem is the individuals, as I've mentioned, have a poor repertoire, a poor basis, a poor premise for their practice, and they've been quite cheeky about where they're stepping onto property where they've no right to be. So my husband, as far as I know, well, as he's a missing person. I'm still a married mother, and there are people of bigotry. Bigotry is not safe to be facilitating either. That puts people's lives at risk as well when there's been blasphemy between 2015 and the present date. So this is quite serious regarding the church and family and the democracy, and any politicians that want to, mind their seats and that don't want to be demoted. You're not above the law to be supporting any alteration or editing. And, I find it quite unsafe that people would want to bring more casualties upon themselves with what they already have to repair and address for what they've caused in damages, harms and losses to my good name. So, people don't like their name being disrespected by people that aren't qualified. And the same applies in this circumstance. As an avatar, that's that's only obvious. And those that have been spinning tall tales, the spin doctors, etc. I'm concerned for you. I'm really, really concerned. I would really hope that COVID and its its objectives would register in these people that would need to look after their own homes and families and health and well-being, rather than trying to be what they're not with my property rights and entitlements and royalties and so on and so forth. And my people, it's so serious what's going on. So I hope people have more respect for themselves and their children. That's another aspect, I suppose, as well. You're setting a poor example to your family, and you're putting your family at risk, causing problems to a mother that you already owe debts to since 2006. So people that are on my farms in Ardfort and Kilflynn, in case the names have been changed there as well, there's so much fraud going on. I think people need to realise that trespass is a punishable offence. And withholding a child that's a missing person from his mother, that's another problem. And we all know the policies about not paying your debts. So I'm owed debt since 2006 in this county. And this county's causing problems for itself. So I hope the authorities are on the right side of the law, and I hope there wouldn't be silly initiatives to continue offending me when there's already a huge amount of respect owed for what's been happening with COVID-19. People jeopardising, and of creative intellectual theft. I'm concerned. I really am concerned about the rationale and people being avaricious and covetous, and that have already got a problem with faith and family problems that they've been causing. So I'm of humanitarian protection. I'm a married mom. I've a fabulous royal bloodline. I've a very clean track record. And the politicians up in Dáil have a few obligations that I'm awaiting for them to address that are kind of getting worse by the day. That's what happens. You see, you can't, as they say, the longer you leave it, the worse it gets. And those problems you're not hoodwinking yourself, you know what I mean? You're not hiding from avoiding your problems isn't mature adult behavior. People hiding from their problems and making problems worse is not making people safe in society. So I hope what reality is there regarding this matter, what I'm relaying in the reality of these circumstances in my documentary, I hope it's registering with people about how cheeky people have been in hate crime initiatives in this community, in my hometown. My forefathers have built this society. My forefathers have laid the foundations for this society long before these people came to this circumstance from wherever they came from. So it's serious that this is happening in my hometown. I don't like nature and the environment and wildlife being disrespected, and that has been happening as well with the disrespect of the Hippocratic Oath. So those people that have a lack of integrity, that can't do their jobs properly or can't hold their position properly, you need to be aware of how compounding the problems that you have to repair with this person, how it works. As for the sanity and sobriety aspect, I'm concerned for people's level of impropriety, and the bad etiquette is a bad example to be setting to young girls in this circumstance. Young girls in particular. I'm an advocate for women, and those people that don't respect women, we're the life of the world, you know what I mean? We give birth, we're the mothers, we keep the home, we burn the fires, etc. So if you can't respect women, and if you can't respect the role of the mother and the female, and the professional female, I have concerns. So this is just another continuation with regard to the trespass, intrusion, the debt creation that's owed to my, the debt creation that's been caused with what's owed to my name, and the false reporting and the defamation. So there's a lot going on. So I hope everyone's minding their mental health. There's a few pariahs and predators that have problems that they don't seem to be but anyway, hopefully the politicians will demonstrate some respect in this situation rather than making a bad situation worse with an absent mother from a child that's missing legally being obstructed and violated and defamed. So the isolationist tactic doesn't help either, I might add. That's another little policy that's at play, isolationism and slander and defamation and so on and so forth. Those aren't really helpful in a community like this that I've reformed since 2018. Bad faith doesn't help, and the bad foundations and the bad debts that I'm owed. Look, I could be talking all day. So this is just an upload for the recovery advocates of the fellowship out there, knowing the reality of the insanity of people that think they have a control of the universe, As an avatar, I'm a universal light worker, and there are people like that have just been jumping into my experience, talking silly about harmonization and so on and so forth, and they've been causing disruption, if anything at all, and they've been causing disrespect where they owe debts, etc. So that's not just meant on a monetary, in a monetary sense, you know what I mean? So they've just demonstrated bad courtesy, really, you know what I mean? So for the recovery advocates of sanity and sobriety throughout the world, I hope you're getting a full grasp of the circumstances I'm enduring, human rights violations, etc., and so on and so forth. Poverty, no hot running water, etc. These kind of, and there are doctors that are after making millions from offending my bodily integrity. There are doctors that have been making millions from damages to my avatar body, and they can't even have the slightest shred of dignity to pay what they owe for their debts and damages and harms and losses caused. That's how disgusting the situation is. So there's a little policy about people monetizing from spiritual beings. That's another little fault and failing. You don't have permission to be intruding upon my avatar body for your monetary gain. So that's just another little issue. There's so many problems being caused. They have no good practice at play, and I'm really concerned for young people now that they might be privy to this. They'd be aware of these circumstances and breaking the law. Breaking the law is not ever a good idea. We know what happens, and there are double standards going on with people of one initiative but can't uphold their own side of the bargain with another initiative. So there's a huge problem going on in County Kerry, as usual, as there has been since 2006. Social influencers are not setting a good influence, and those that are living off my work, I can't reiterate it enough. There's a little problem with people exploiting me and not paying their debts they owe me, and people walking on property that I haven't given consent for people to be walking upon, and my beautiful child missing, and people disrespecting the church. So I hope the government is aware humanitarian protection is at play due to the constitutional wrongdoings that you are aware of that have been occurring. And there are obligations that you up in Dáil Éireann have to my royal titles. So sanity and sobriety prevails. It's great fellowship, a great family. It's very powerful. So I hope people might learn from the fellowship. As a recovery advocate, I'm a grateful addict.